Welcome into the Paul Kuharsky podcast. I'm Paul Kuharsky of paulkuharsky.com, part of the 440 network, brought to you by Zen Sports. Lots to talk about the Titans today as they head into preseason week one. We're going to talk about T'Vondre Sweat's endurance and what I watched from him today as I locked in on him. A real big endorsement of Jaylen Harrell. A lot of other stuff that came up and a bunch of voicemails from you as well as your questions here. Welcome and thanks for coming. Let's get to work. T'Vondre Sweat, really, the reports of what he's doing in practice are not exaggerated. Now, it's too early to take a victory lap about the Titans having selected him at pick 38 in the second round. But this idea of he and Jeff Simmons side by side being too much for people to handle certainly seems to be on a path to coming to fruition. He's just too much to handle. I watched him specifically today. I'm going to write about it right after this podcast is over. His endurance is big. And I talked with Brian Callahan today about, the diminishing returns. Jim Washburn used to talk about this back in the early days of the Titans. How many plays can you run a defensive lineman out there before, he's too tired and they're diminishing returns? Callahan said, 5 or 6. Well, T'Vondre Sweat's going 5 or 6 plays in a row right now already. Is he tired at the end of those? Yeah. Are other guys tired at the end of those? Yeah. But he chased down Will Levis. He didn't get to him, but Will Levis rolled out hard to his left today. And among the guys who are chasing him is T'Vondre Sweat, who's, in the 360-pound range. He could still be, higher than that. Chugging as hard as he could go after him. So I think he's on a great track right now. He talked to us at the podium after. He's not as quite as bubbly as he was after the draft. I don't know if he's consciously kind of toned that down or what. I hope that personality kind of reemerges, but he still has his moments. Here's one of them from today where he's intentionally saying UT. He's been asked about UT versus Tennessee, Texas versus Tennessee, with Texas coming into the SEC, him living in Nashville amongst a lot of University of Tennessee alumni. He's not going to hesitate to call Texas UT. But here he is on his smarts.
Right. I went to UT. Very smart school, And I don't know. I've just always been good in the film room and meeting rooms, Very intelligent guy. So.
Was that audible? I got to look at the comments here. It goes quiet for me, but I want to make sure that you heard it. Anyway, I think the guy's on a superior track. It should really do wonders for Simmons. He's a handful for Cushenberry. He's a handful for Skoronski. He's a handful for whoever's at right guard right now, which is led by Dylan Radins. And I understand why people are so incredibly excited about him. Again, don't take a victory lap at this point, but know that right now things are very encouraging. One thing I want to mention again, and I've mentioned it before, but you've got a Woozy out with the calf strain suffered on day one. You've got Hopkins out with the knee strain. Now you've got Sadiq Charles who quit. So there were training camps as Mike Vrabel went along where things like this happened and he got crucified for it. The honeymoon phase is strong for Brian Callahan. Sadiq Charles leaving because he lost his love of football, it seems. There wasn't some event. So it's not as if, one of his parents has fallen ill and he's gone to taking care of them or something like that. And you want to make sure that that's not the case as you're a fan who's upset with the guy who left his football team. That's not the case here. Indications are from Brian Callahan. That retirement really leaves them in a hole. Sadiq Charles, despite what Brian Callahan said, had taken the majority, I think, of first-team snaps. Dylan Radins, he indicated, had gotten a good share of first-team reps. That's not what most of us saw. I mean, Dylan Radins got the first-team snaps on Saturday and Sunday when Sadiq Charles was out. Now, let's be clear here. The last two practices, today's Thursday. So Wednesday, the first big practice without Charles, Radins split reps with Andrew Rupcich, and you thought, hey, Rupcich is in the mix here. Rupcich did not work the same today. And I talked to Rupcich yesterday after talking with Radins, but Rupcich said they had been talking about getting him work with the ones for a while, getting him in the mix. So I think that might have been coming for Rupcich to get some work with the ones, no matter what was happening with Charles, based on the fact that they went right back to on Thursday, Rupcich not really working with the ones. So I wouldn't put too much into Rupcich getting that time with the ones. And that leads us to a phone call here on our voicemail line, our new feature here for members. Here's Josh asking more about the interior offensive line.
Hey, PK, this is Joshua from the All 22. With the sudden retirement of Charles, the right guard, what does that do with the starting lineup and more? And
are we hearing that?
Internal
I don't know why I've got no audio.
Portion of the line was guard and center. How much would that change, and should we be looking?
All right, here's Josh. I'm going to play that from the beginning now that you're telling me you can hear it. Sorry, a little technical glitch on my end since I'm new to this part of it. So here's Josh on the offensive line question, the interior offensive line. No audio. Disaster. Sorry about that. He wanted to know really what's coming next. I apologize for that. Wanted to know what's coming next there with internal depth after Charles disappears. Radins is the right guard as far as I'm concerned. Brunskill, they don't seem to have a lot of interest in there. It's not seemingly in the mix. The other options, Lachavius Simmons, Cole Spencer, Corey Levin, Brian Dooley, don't see any indication that they're interested in these guys as a first as presences on there. I think that the final roster could be Radins at right guard, Skoronski at left guard, Cushenberry at center, Brunskill as the swing guy, Rupcich outside chance to be swing backup guard, but more likely an outsider at cut time, being the guy who's going to fill in as an outsider replacement there. So that's what I think is likely to happen there in the sense of outsider thing there. Take a couple questions from the comments here if you want to get those going too. Alan Ditto says he likes the look of the new site, and I appreciate that very much, Alan. A lot of hard work went into that. My thanks to Brent Peacher who's my website designer, and to Scott, who I'll leave his last name out of it, but a friend of mine who sat with me and kind of came up with a lot of the ideas behind it that kind of put things to paper. Cole Spencer, Ryan, haven't really noticed or heard about. Yes, he's been quiet. Let's take a second to retweet if you're watching this live, and I'd appreciate if you're listening or watching later on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or iHeart. Do what you can to give a thumbs up, rate, review, and subscribe. That helps everybody out. What are my thoughts on Wyatt? That's Jim Wyatt, tracking completion percentage in camp. To Ed, it's kind of worthless. I mean, it's nice to have a general sense of the numbers, but completion percentage in 7-on-7 should be extraordinarily high. So you have to factor that in when you're looking at what the indications are there. And it's an interesting number to have as long as people contextualize it, and we know that people aren't good generally at at contextualizing it. TGR asks, coming in, there were concerns of JC losing the edge on a speed rush or inside speed move. How is his athleticism looked? I think he's looked very athletic. I saw him get beaten a one-on-one to the outside today, but I don't sense it's a trending issue by any means. So I think Latham looks quite good for sure. I've got no issues about that at all. Let's flip over here for a second. Keep the questions coming in. One thing, there was a pick by each quarterback today. Luke Gifford, of all people, who is regarded and was signed largely to be a special teams guy, had 2 picks today. He picked off Levis on a pass across the middle. He stepped in front of a Rudolph pass and took off with it down the field. So it was a good day for him. Gabe Judy Lawley had an interception of
great new feature.
Malik Willis, who fell back to earth today. Didn't have a very good day. This was the last practice, by the way, of the week. They'll have a walk-through-ish
what does that do with
light thing tomorrow, obviously, as they get ready for the game coming up. Let's see what we can do here with Ed with the question about development.
Hey, Paul, this is Ed Henry. Thank you, first of all, for setting this up. My question has to do with the development of these players under a new coaching staff. And my question is this overblown? How do we know if a player develops because of the new coaching, or it was just time for that player to have everything kick in? And also, isn't there an equal amount of players that may struggle with the new style of coaching? Thank you, and I appreciate you taking the question. Hey, Paul, this is Ed Henry. Thank you, first of all, for setting this up.
Difficult.
My question has to do with the development of these players under a new coaching staff. And my question is this overblown? How do we know if a player develops because of the new coaching, or it was just time for that player to have everything kick in? And also, isn't there an equal amount of players that may struggle with the new style of coaching? Thank you, and I appreciate you taking the question. Hey, Paul, this is Ed Henry. Thank you.
So did we hear Ed, or did we hear the
My question
ad?
has to do with the development of these players under a new
Ed doesn't
coaching
like
staff.
himself.
And my question is this overblown? How do we know if a player develops because of the new coaching? Or
And I've got it on a loop, which I turned off. For crying out loud,
and
Paul,
also,
get it
isn't
together.
there an equal amount of players that may struggle with the new style of coaching? Thank you, and I appreciate you taking the question.
All right, we've heard Ed a couple times, maybe over the ad. I've got a lot of notes to talk about Ed. Gonna have to sort out that ad thing. Player development. Ed's question is. So look, player development, there's a expectation based on a guy's pedigree, right? So Latham is supposed to be good. Is he going to be as good as expected? That goes a lot to how Bill Callahan coaches him. Radens hasn't been good since he's been here. He was drafted to be a right tackle. He never won the right tackle job. And he's been viewed really as a backup guard by the Vrabel regime and now by the Callahan regime. So what are these guys under Bill Callahan, under Brian Callahan, under this coaching staff? That's player development. Burks was supposed to be good. He's a first-round pick. Rob Moore did not bring out the best in him. Now, it's primarily on Burks, but it's also on Rob Moore. Now you look at him in a new system. Does the coaching of Brian Callahan, of the offensive coordinator, of the position coach, Tyke Tolbert, help him do better? Not all the credit goes to the staff, but some of the credit goes to the staff. It's player first, but player development's important. Then pedigree guys, you hope not an equal number of the pedigree guys struggle, but then you look at late picks like Harrell, who we're going to talk about here, like undrafted rookie free agents, Gabe, Julie, Lawley. These guys emerge. Well, it's the scouting that finds these guys and drafts them late or brings them in. And then it's the coaching that works with the scouting to bring out the skills in these people. And it's the talent, and it's a combination. All of those things together. But I don't think player development's overrated at all. I think it's often underrated, which is an unfortunate piece of the whole deal. So I think certainly an important part of things for sure. We'll take another couple questions here, see what you got. Do I have a sense for who the favorite is to be the kick returner? Do I think it'll be the same person as a punt returner? I don't. We need to see how the kick return thing, Sam, plays out for everything around the league and here. And then still, what's unknown about it going into the season because of the dramatic change in the kickoff thing. I think it calls for a different style, maybe a more physical style. You don't need to be as jitterbuggy as you'd like maybe a punt returner to be. I think Spears would be good at it. I know there's some calls for Burks to be good at it. I fear using Burks in a situation there where maybe it's another opportunity for him to be hurt. Though once Hopkins is back and you're using not using Burks as much, it might be a good role for him. I don't know that it would be the same person as the punt returner. You would think that Jackson, the sixth round rookie, would be in line to be the punt returner if he makes the team. If he doesn't make the team, then you would think Kyle Phillips or Mason Kinsey is making the team, and one of them would be the punt returner. Kyle Phillips said he got a fresh slate from the new coaching staff to as a punt returner. It's his last chance. Obviously, he's made too many mistakes. He should be getting better coaching now. We know Craig Aukerman was a failure. Mason Kinsey looks really good in training camp. And Kyle Phillips was the one really big bright spot in the red zone one-on-ones the other day. But that's what these guys are really good at. And Mason Kinsey's better. But, is Mason Kinsey a guy that you want on the field against NFL defenses? I don't. When the team is finally really better at wide receiver, I don't want him getting wide receiver snaps in NFL games. And can they afford to keep strictly a punt returner? I don't know. So edge rotation opposite Harold, Glory Holtz is asking me about, and that goes to this whole Jaylen Harrell, question. Brian Callahan has not singled guys out for praise. really, outside of the obvious guys who are very good players on this team. But today he was asked by Terry McCormick about the edge options beyond Harold Landry. And that was a pretty open-ended question. And out of that pretty open-ended question, he said this.
I think the one guy I have to single out that's been fantastic is Jaylen Harrell. He has come in and done everything right, and that's a big step for a young player. And then he's actually shown real ability to rush. And so again, he's another player in a live action. We'll see if it translates to what it's looked like on the practice field. But been really impressed with what he's done so far. He's been physical as an outside linebacker. He's shown rush ability. He's made plays when he's had opportunities to make plays. So everything about Jaylen has been really, really exciting. So put him on the list of guys that I'm excited to go watch play on Saturday.
A little bit later, I followed that up with a question where once it got clear that I wasn't asking about Harold Landry, but Jaylen Harrell, I asked, could he be a 3-down player? And he said, oh, yeah. Now, that's big that a 7th-round draft pick could be conceivably to Brian Callahan, now before he's played a snap in it so much as a preseason game, conceivably be a 3-down outside linebacker. If they found themselves a 3-down offensive outside linebacker who can fill in for Arden Key during his suspension and conceivably play the downs that Arden Key doesn't play when Arden Key is back, really, really, really good. It's way too early to get that excited about it, but that is singular level praise from Brian Callahan about a low-ranking guy. So that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. And we've got a phone call, a voicemail about that, if I can make it work, which unfortunately it's not going wonderfully well, but we're going to give it a shot anyway. This one's from, who's it from? Bear with. Sammy, tell me if you're hearing it.
Hey, Paul, it's Sammy. I was just wondering with these Callahan's statements today, Thursday, about Jaylen Harrell kind of doing everything right and looking good, if you're a little bit more at ease with the edge situation, even with the suspension for Arden Key. And if you think that maybe that's why they haven't gone out of their way to bring in another edge yet. Thanks, bud. Hope you're well. Take care.
So look, Harrell, it'd be really something if he was an absolute solution to this whole thing, but that he could be a partial solution conceivably to this whole thing is a wonderful, wonderful possibility. I don't think Jaylen Harrell can stop the Titans from going and looking for help, be it Carl Lawson, be it Yannick Ngakoue, who I understand he's such a one-down guy, but still they need more at outside linebacker. Caleb Murphy has been a zero. Thomas Rush has been a zero. Right now, you're talking about Harrell, Weaver, who likely is the starter without Key, and Shane Ray. So 3 guys who, all have a question mark. Weaver, not an every down guy by any means. Harrell, an unknown. Ray hasn't played it down in 5 years. That's a tough batch. Tyus Bowser, I'm curious about. Brian has listed his name. And Mike Herndon wrote 2 weeks ago about a variety of guys. I don't think many of them have been signed in the meantime. So I'm very curious about what's out there and why the Titans have not taken any action. And I'm not saying you have to go sign a guy, but how about taking a look? And as far as we know, they haven't even had anybody in for a look yet. So very curious as to what their thinking is about those edge guys, and I don't see enough there. Do you see something that I need? I mean, Nick says he sees Weaver getting passed up. I mean, Weaver's going to play to some degree, but Chris asks, forgive me if you've already discussed this, but what are your thoughts on Cedric Gray? Cedric Gray has not been very visible. Now he's got a shoulder injury that might hold him out of Sunday's game. So that's Saturday's game. Sorry. So that's tough. And he's not going to be starting on opening day based on how much they like Jack Gibbons, how well Jack Gibbons has done with this chance so far. Game's 6:00, Brian. I don't know why I hit that. That's not a question for here. That's a Google question. Nick asks, why are they signing safeties? Why not sign some edge outside linebacker help? Well, I asked Callahan this about, you've got a coordinator who's a defensive back, a former defensive back coach, and you're loaded at defensive back now after you signed Jamal Adams, despite the health questions, after you signed Condre Diggs. They're very deep now there. And so why not address edge? And he said, going back through the whole free agency, that the value and the quality of players has just been better in the secondary. And that's the basis for what they've done. So we've got that. Hey, Robert Draper, good to see you. What, if any, meaningful differences am I seeing between Pollard and Spears that could telegraph how they each be used? None. Really none. Spears had 2 great runs today that I think he was intending to go outside, but I don't know if he was intending to go all the way outside. Both times, these were red zone runs. He beat the entire defense inside the pylon. Really, one of them had a jump cut in it. Looked really good, looked really fast, really encouraging, and really pissed Denard Wilson off one time, asking, where's the corner? Where's the corner? Cornerback not showing up to finish the play and keep him short of the end zone. But I think they're getting an equal amount of carries on early downs, on third down and short, and equal number of passes. I think they go with the hot hand. I think certain games they'll see somehow an advantageous matchup for one of them. So I don't think there's going to be any tells. Brent asks, has Key been officially suspended? He has not. A lot of people reading into that, some level of hope or the like. Look, these PED suspensions are very sensitive. The league likes to dump them out with the trash. Danico Autry's hasn't been announced either. So I would look for a Friday announcement. I thought maybe they'd come out last Friday. Now maybe they'll come out this Friday. I don't know. But Brian Callahan was asked about it in the last couple of days, and he said, I'm sure we're going to be without him for some time. I don't think anything it will change. Appeals on these have hardly ever worked. So I just think it's a matter of all of the league's paperwork and logistics and all of that delicate handling and everything. But Arden Key informed the team about this suspension. They're fully expecting to be without him, and it's a matter of the league announcing it. Dixie said she didn't even know that Autry was suspended. I mean, that one was very well publicized because Autry put out a statement about it with an explanation of what he claims happened to him. Nick Sherlock asks, what's Molden's role in this scheme? Molden is now, I think, going to be a situational player like Jamal Adams. And, they've got a lot of situational secondary players. Can they overpackage? I think it's a possibility. I talked to Brian Callahan about it. I'm going to have a story on that in the next 2 days. So it'll be interesting. Sam with a good question. Do I see any similarities / comparisons beyond size with Sweat to Haynesworth? Well, Sweat is bigger than Haynesworth. I think Haynesworth is meaner than Sweat, angrier probably than Sweat. We'll have to see in how it translates to play. Haynesworth didn't always desire to be great. Certainly in the 2 contract years. We were talking about this on the sideline today. In Haynesworth's 2 contract years, maybe we saw the best work a defensive player ever did for the Titans. Contenders, Javon Curse in his first 2 years. Samari Rolle maybe at the very peak of his game. So, if Sweat can come close to that, maybe we will see something close to that. It would be fantastic. Glory Holtz wants Levis to have something wrong with his toe right now because it was bothering him last year. It would be nice to get him just to clarify the toe is better than it was. He's not going to say the toe's an issue. If it is an issue, and if it's an issue, that's a huge problem. That he would have a toe issue bothering him 2 weeks into camp when he should have come into camp, fine. Josh Whyle has been doing a lot of chirping at practices. Let me hit Zen Sports first. My sponsor is Zen Sports, as you hopefully know by now. Zen Sports, a great place to place your bets. Go download their app onto your phone. Sign up using the code TNPAUL, TNPAUL. If you do that and you make a bet of just $10, you get a year of paulkuharsky.com for free. But if you don't want the membership for some crazy reason, or you want the membership and you prefer to make a much bigger bet, you could bet up to $1,000 with a no danger first wager. And what you do is you make that first bet on anything with odds up to plus $500, and you get either a huge win to bankroll your account or the relief of losing that bet and getting your money back within 24 hours. It's a great deal from Zen Sports. They are very good to me. I hope you will be good to them. Check them out. Go download the app, Zen Sports, and use code TNPAUL. I appreciate you appreciating them. What did I just start to tell you about there? Josh Whyle. Josh Whyle is doing a lot of chirping. Mason Kinsey's been noisy too. Look, I like a noisy guy at practice, but I have to be honest. I think you got to do something before you chirp. And by do something, I mean do something more than make some catches in practice. Otherwise, it comes back to bite you in the ass. And if you're chirping at me, an established defensive player, during practice, and then you go through 3 games of the season and you haven't done anything, I think you stand the risk of looking pretty foolish. But Brian Callahan and Wiley's teammates have endorsed this. Apparently, the defensive guys like it as well. We had a chance to talk to Wiley about this today.
I've said it before. I think, a lot last year, just coming in and being a rookie. Just trying to focus on what I got to do. And this year, I'm a little bit more comfortable in the field. And it's just kind of my way of bringing a little bit of energy, get the defense fired up a little bit, get all the guys going. So.
What's the response been from the defensive side and from your offensive mates?
I think everybody loves it. I think it's kind of a good way to get everybody going, get the juices flowing early. It's just my way of having fun, man.
So that's where Wiley stands on it, and I'm all right with it. Look, the guy's been playing very well, a lot better. He's coming into his own, and if that's his personality, look, the Titans need some of that. I Again, I'd prefer it's coming from more established people, but maybe he's soon to be established. And if he's soon to be established, that's great. So we'll see how that goes. I think Josh Whyle, if he does play the way that he's been playing in camp, is going to be a very popular player in very short order. So we will see more about that. And he's a guy that's excited to see. What's Brian Callahan's intensity level like during practice? Does he show amusement or anger, or is he rah-rah or more laid back? He's very laid back. Denard Wilson, very rah-rah and animated during practice. Callahan, if you want to see him and how he's reacting to things, you have to really look for him. He is in the usual head coach positions, often, kind of behind the center of the offense or a little bit off to the side from that. But he's not very animated and he's not very loud. You have to make an effort to find him and to see who he's talking to and how he's acting. He gathered them up to yell at them after they fought that day and things like that. So he's got his moments, but it's not a lot. Sam, I've written a lot about, Sam asked to follow on Robert's questions. What, if any, are the biggest differences in Callahan's camp versus Vrabel's camp? I've written a couple things about this. I mean, about full tilt versus resilient and relentless. And about stress-free. Guys feel less stressed with this coach. Now, I think, and Callahan said, you want guys to be stressed at times, and it's a necessary part of things. Stress produces growth and all of that. But guys are showing up to work clearly, generally more relaxed, and it's a more relaxed atmosphere. Vrabel could be hard to work for. He was hard to be a rookie for, certainly, and he was hard to be injured for. I think it's been easier for Latham and Sweat. I think it's been easier for guys who are hurt or who are managed. And, some of these guys are older. So somebody like Radens, who's having an easier time of it, he's partially having an easier time of it because he's more experienced. And he's been through it more. He's got a better position coach now and all of that. But part of it is, probably that he feels like it's easier to work for Callahan and Callahan's staff than it was for Vrabel. Yeah, Glory Holes is on Levis's toe. Grade 3 turf toe is 18 to 24 months for a full recovery. Yeah, that's great. They didn't mention his toe coming out of the season. I'm not going to give him any leeway for poor play based on a toe injury if they're not going to say anything about the toe injury. And that's not so much on me to ask. When the season's over, if part of the reason you played shitty is an injury and you don't tell me about the injury, that's on you. It's not on me, right? It's not an excuse at that point. You keep it quiet during the season, that's fine, because you don't want to give away something because you think somebody's going to try to step on your toe or grab your toe in the bottom of a pile and all of that. This isn't just Levis. This goes for everybody. But if you were partially impacted by an injury and it affected your play, and you or your coach or your team doesn't then come forward and say, hey, part of the reason I struggled or did whatever was because this turf toe was a real pain in my ass. That's not excuse making. That's fact sharing. And you choose not to fact share. That's a problem for me on the information side of things. So I'll certainly, ask some people I know if he's got a toe issue, but there's no indications that he has a toe issue. And I'm not going to share and you making excuses for him on something that there's no indication is an issue. So we've got one more call here I wanted to get to. And here's an issue with Burks that we need to put an end to. And this is partly Brian Callahan's fault. His name is Treylon Burks, but people have taken it calling him Treylon. And I think Callahan mispronounces it to a degree, and people have picked up on that and taken it. So now we're hearing it from media people, Treylon. Now, this isn't like when Valentino Blake, what was his name before it was Valentino? Cornerbacks change their name a lot. Guys figure out that so-and-so can't cover. Then he changes his name to something else. Oh, I know a guy, the receivers say, I knew a guy with that last name. He wasn't very good. This isn't the same guy, though, is it? There have been several cornerbacks who've done that, actually. And the joke is always that the guy, people discovered the first guy couldn't cover, so he changed his name to the other thing. But Treylon is the same guy as Treylon. His name was been pronounced Treylon since he was drafted and well before, I think. And a good friend of the site, Trey Wynn, kind of rhymey there, also has a question pertaining to Burks. Let me know that you can hear it. Let me know when it's over. Hopefully that won't be an issue beyond
PK,
today.
what's up? It's Trey Wynn. It's at TRESWINN. Love the hotline. But I wanted to ask you a question just because obviously DeAndre Hopkins being out for 4 to 6 weeks, I think is what I saw. Obviously Treylon Burks is having a good camp. Nobody wants to fall victim to the hype. And obviously, you're pounding your chest for a guy like Racey McMath. Not to throw shade at anybody, Canadian Titan. But all that to say, I wanted to ask you, how much opportunity is here for Burks? Do you think he can get worked in, or is NWI the dude? Because he's been all reliable. I know fans love to hate on him and some hate to love on him. But all that to say, love your thoughts. Keep it up. Appreciate it.
So Burks is in Hopkins' spot. Thanks for the question, Trey. That's the X. NWI can play everywhere, but he's no X. He's more of an F, which is this kind of adjuster, or Z. But if there's this idea out there, it's being spread by one guy in particular, you could guess who, that like if Burks is struggling, if Hopkins is to miss a couple games and Burks, his replacement, is struggling, that the Titans will remove Burks and replace him with NWI. This idea that depth charts, it really doesn't happen this way. And it certainly doesn't happen this way here, where so-and-so is removed from the depth chart and replaced by a guy. NWI is going to get snaps in this offense, and he's inevitable. I agree with that and all of that. But if Hopkins is out for 2 games, if Burks is healthy, Burks is going to get the majority of the X snaps. Now, if he somehow is struggling really badly, will NWI get some of those snaps? Yeah, I suppose. And they'll probably move some guys around so that he's not playing all those X snaps. But he's not going to take Burks' spot as Hopkins' replacement, like flat out. I don't see it happening. And he's not out long enough for it to be a big thing, unless Hopkins, has some kind of setback, or unless Burks is hurt. I get the NWI is inevitable. I think NWI will show up throughout the season and find ways to be there. And that's fine. Dashville Tube says Levis seems to be throwing a pick a day. No one is calling that out. No one's calling that out because people are being smart, because they realize that training camp pick is not a big deal. They're figuring things out. So when you're figuring things out, picks happen. And it's just not that big a thing. Like a practice isn't like, okay, there was a game today, and he threw a pick in the game. It's just not the same. A training camp pick is not that big a deal. And like the streaks we used to look at, like when Mariota went like a whole training camp without throwing a pick. And what did that result in? Nothing. NPF looks good. Chris Key's asking. I think NPF has been very solid since he showed back up. Yeah. Jonathan Merck, very quick to say Mariota never threw picks in practice. How did that go for us? Which is exactly what I was saying there. Trey Rogers says reports that Kenneth Murray is looking better than his LA Chargers play. How do you stack him up against Al-Shaair or Rashaan Evans? Sounds like just a wreck-it time of guy. Well, Rashaan Evans was horrible. He's better than Rashaan Evans. He is a thicker, more physical guy than Al-Shaair, who's not as good in space and not as heady, I think you could say. But he's far better than a lot of us were expecting. So that is a very good thing. Mason Kinsey, Deagle says PK is a Kinsey hater. Mason Kinsey's been in the league for 3 years. He's got like 2 catches. He's played in like 2 games. Like, how could you love Mason Kinsey? Like, you can love an underdog story, but when you're in the league for 3 years and you've been on the roster for like 2 games, why don't you want better than that? I just don't understand. There, Sam said it. People who've watched Kinsey play are Kinsey haters. I wanted to go back here to Stoney. Where's your thing, Stoney? Why are you guys in love with this Eitan? I don't even know how to pronounce his name. I mean, you're not out there watching, so you get secondhand word stuff, but I don't watch the threes that closely. But if you're doing something on the threes, you get moved to with the twos. Have we heard anything about him being with the twos? I like Stoney and all those guys a lot, but I think they fall in love with some of these guys coming in. And then when we don't hear a word about those guys during camp, they don't just move on to the guys who matter. And maybe he's doing great work in the background. I'm not the best at noticing interior guys who are doing great work in the background. But I think the reason a guy like Malik Willis has been pretty good until today is because a guy like Eitan, or however you pronounce it, hasn't been pretty good. They carry more than 6 wide receivers. Ridley, D-Hop, Boyd, Burks, NWI. And then you're into that extra slottish type who's got to be a returner. Phillips, Jackson, Kinsey. One of those guys would be 6 to me and have a return spot. So I don't know. It's not guys, Stoney says. It's just him. All right. Well, if you want to let Zach and those other guys off the hook, I accept that. Jennifer, how are you? Caleb Farley is hurt. Shocking. Won't play this weekend. What good is it doing to keep him on the roster? Well, he's not making any money. Nobody gets paid during training camp except like the per diem stuff. He doesn't get paid until opening day. And I believe his contract this year is guaranteed. First round contract guaranteed through 4 years. So whether he's here or not, he's getting paid. This hamstring could be a blessing to him that lands him on IR. At least time to recover. So they can't cut him right now. He's hurt. You can't cut hurt guys. You have to settle with them. Everybody gets eager for guys to get cut when there's no benefit for them being cut. But he can't be cut right now. He's hurt. Now, if they cut him the day before he was hurt, so he'd be gone. But what's the bother that he's in the training room? That doesn't hurt the Titans that he's rehabbing his hamstring. So here's the deal with the text line, which I will have figured out better by next time, the voicemail line, in terms of my being able to hear it. I'm going to send out another text message because the text to notify you that this was going on wouldn't allow me to go long enough to include it. It is also on the private Facebook page. So if you're a member, it's already there. I would love it if you would put it in your contacts and then think when you, hey, I'd like to ask Paul this. You can leave a voicemail there, loud and clear, please. And I will monitor those regularly, file them away, and have them ready for podcasts. Boom. Members' voices on the podcast. Major benefit. Much bigger to be heard from than to be questioned. And I'm going to put a large share of those voicemails in the podcast as opposed to selectively picking questions from this rail over here. So that's how that works. I hope you'll put it to use. And I hope you've checked out the new paulkuharsky.com redesign. Much sleeker, more modern look. Who's inside linebacker 3? It's a great question. And somebody asked me earlier about James Williams versus Otis Reese, maybe. Otis Reese has shown up a little bit lately. He had been largely quiet. Those inside linebackers, the depth there is not good. Cedric Gray has been very quiet. I do not like the group. And I don't think that there is a standout as the third. Gray maybe by default. Chance Campbell, I'm waiting on his athleticism to show up. JoJo Doman's out, hurt now. They lost a guy to injury. Luke Gifford's playing some there now. Garrett Wallow's out for the season. Not that he was going to be a factor, but I think it's very unclear who's going to be the guy, so to speak. Depth chart as second guys. They had Whyle and Chance Campbell, so there's a little seniority there. Maybe Gray and James Williams, Reese, Gifford, JoJo Doman. I think Gifford, costs them too much money and should be a cut guy. He does nothing special and is a special team specialist now. With the kickoff being what it is, I think there's less need for guys like that. But that's to be determined. Check back on that for sure. Am I impressed with the new look offense as a whole? I think they've had a hard time with the defense. The red zone one-on-one period that I tweeted out yesterday was poor. Phillips was the only guy really doing things. The DBs were winning. There were too many throws that were off target. I'm surprised that it's taken Levis and Ridley a while to sync up. I mean, Levis has a great deep arm and had problems timing things up with Ridley. I wouldn't think that would be as difficult as it's been. It seems like they've figured it out now, so that's good. I like 3 wides a lot more than I like 2 tights. Offensive line, I really want to see him do it against somebody else. And, still a lot of rough edges. So I'm optimistic. I'm a Callahan believer. I think the talent is significantly better. But we'll see. I think there could be days early in the season where people say, man, Derrick Henry looks awfully good in Baltimore. I don't take questions, Nick, that are just a name with a question mark. Apologies. What else we got? Throw a couple more at me and we'll get out of here. Am I confident with the safety position at this point? MP asks. Hell, I mean, Amani Hooker and Condre Diggs is a nice 1-2 punch to me. I think Diggs has slowed down a little bit as a 31-year-old, but I like Hooker and Diggs. I like Molden and Adams as depth. I know Adams is, hurt a lot. He's out right now, sore. But, considering that was a big positional question at the start of camp, I think it's pretty solid right now. I like the situation at safety, and the defensive backfield is really, really solid across the board if they're healthy. So I appreciate what they've done there. Safety, solid and deep. outside linebacker, trouble. Yeah, I think Stoney asks thoughts on Mike's take. I presume that's Mike Herndon, that the fact that they were giving Rupsich some run at right guard speaks to a potential lack of faith in Radins. I think that was a decent read on Wednesday, and on Thursday it becomes a bad read because Rupsich didn't get any run. And so if you talk to Rupsich on Wednesday, he made it sound like, yeah, they've been kind of talking to me about getting me some reps with the ones. And I think it was kind of an odd coincidence that coincided with Charles's absence. But the fact that on the second padded practice day without Charles, that Rupsich wasn't working with the ones, tells us that it doesn't mean much about Radins. Oh, Levis is playing. So we can end on this. Hill says, what do I think that a chance of Levis playing this Saturday? Badly worded, but I think he's asking, is there a chance of Levis playing? The starters are playing at least a series, maybe two, depending on how that series goes. It's quite odd for after 6 years of Mike Vrabel not telling us anything about the preseason plan, that Brian Callahan comes right out and says it. So Simmons isn't playing. Landry isn't playing. Nick Vanette, the tight end, is not playing. And then probably guys who have been hurt are not playing. Hopkins certainly not. Owuzie certainly not. Jamal Adams and L'Jarius Sneed you wouldn't expect. JoJo Doman's been out. Leroy Watson has been out. Cedric Gray is out. Trayshawn Harrison is out. Wouldn't expect any of those guys. Everybody else should play. And then Rudolph and Malik Willis after Levis are going to rotate. So it's not going to be Rudolph with the 2s and Willis with the 3s. They'll go alternate series probably for the most part. And so we will see Willis work with better people than he's generally worked with in practice. And that'll be a good thing. So, it's hard for me to be entertained by preseason games, but there is information to be gleaned from them. And we'll have our scouting eye on that game on Saturday. Blake Bedingfield returns on Sunday with a scouting review of that game. So he'll be able to tell us his impressions of a lot of these guys that he hasn't seen yet, who he'll see for the first time. So that will be good. So be on the lookout for that voicemail number. It's on the Facebook page. I will text it to you as well if you're on the text list as a member. And please start leaving voicemails that I could use in these podcasts. I think it's a great feature. Check out the redesigned website if you haven't been on there. Please check out Zen Sports, my sponsor. Don't lock the box. Be sure to lock your locks. I'll see you at the game on Saturday if you're going, or I'll talk to you maybe Sunday after. Cheers and be well.